All right, everybody. It is June 2025, and you're in for a treat today. This is a highly requested pattern of mine. I'm finally going to do the smaller version for you in a tying video, and I'll probably follow up this fall with the larger of the two. We're going to tie the Hog Snare 2.0 today, and we're going to do it in this like olivey brown with some tan color. That's pretty much the fly we're going to tie today. And this is the larger version. That's the 5-inch version. We'll tie that one at a later date. If you recall, this is just so you can see the difference. That's the original Hog Snare in the small size, and there's the 2.0. So there's some slight variations here. The most notable is two notable things on it are the tail. The tail on the original is marabou, and it uses more of a holographic flash. The head's different too. The original head version, I would take laser dub and spin it into a dubbing loop and then comb it out, which I still like to tie them that way too, but these basically carded and chopped ones, kind of like my buddy Mike Schmidt's Viking Midge is like that. We both kind of came up with that idea, or a couple concepts together of chopping the head, but it's neither here nor there. So to get things started, I got a number 2 Airex TP610 in the vise. I typically use this size or a 4 for the trailer hook on the larger version, but the 2 and a 1 up front is typically what I use. Using a Vivus 140 and an olive, we're just going to start our thread right behind the eye, and I'm going to lay a thread base just past the halfway point. Reason for that is, which you'll see in a moment, this helps actually anchor the tail. So in order to make this feather tail really pop, I use 2 sets of feathers, and these are Whiting American feathers. You can either get them off the cape of the saddle. Another option that works really, really well, and I bounce between the two. Ewing's making some fantastic feathers these days too, and I really like some of their deceiver patches and some of their other feathers that they tie. They use that whole Scott Byron series is actually really good for this as well. So what I want to do is I'm going to take the solid color of the olive and I'm going to place that behind the olive grizzly. That's about how long I want my tail, so about where my thumb is where I'm going to tie it in. So I'm just going to peel some of that feather back, trim off what I don't need. And what I typically like to do is I'll take a flat pair of non-serrated pliers, just kind of flatten those stems out a little bit. Put a little drop of yellow Loctite on there. Probably a little too much, but that's okay. We're not going to splay these tails. I want them to lay flat. So I'm going to transfer them, and I actually going to bind this down right into some of those fibers, just like you see here. So you see I want that nice and flat. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I just take a couple turns there. That looks about right. Pull some of that fiber away, get it out of there, trim off the excess, try not to make a mess, take your pliers, flatten it out, and I'm just basically going to try and match those. Mirror image. You typically want to do this with some light thread wraps to start before you really bind it down, because that'll help prevent it from rolling, so they stay relatively flat. Once you've got a series of thread wraps on there, you can just kind of cut those butt ends away, bind them down, bring your thread right back to the base. Now the flash on this is different. I'm going to use Pearl Firefly. You've probably recognized this is probably one of my favorite flashes. I use it very sparingly on this. So I take 2 strands, cut them in half. I'm going to catch them on the near side, I want these to lie right down the center line of that stem. So I come halfway down, I'm going to fold them over. I'm going to do the same thing down the far side, just like you see here. And then I want that, how long you leave that flash is entirely up to you. I like it to be just past those feathers. Now the next thing I do, and you can use flex resin for this if you want. I'm just going to use some thin Solaris, but I want to make sure that these feathers don't foul. So I'm going to take just a little bit. And it's also going to help me lock that flash in place. I'm just going to run a little bead of that, and then some right between the two feathers here, just like you see here. And then if you take your fingers, your thumb and your pointer finger, and you leave them just past that point of where you've put that resin, and you hit that with your torch, you've just firmed those up. That's going to help prevent that from fouling. Now, next thing we're going to do, on the original one too, or the original Hog Snare, what I like to do, I used to use cactus chenille for the underbody, but for this one I'm kind of borrowing a technique from Kelly that I like. You know, ice dub makes great underbodies, so I'm going to use a tan schlappen feather. Just going to take one turn to lock it in place, just like you see here, and then you can kind of leave it there, or you can just kind of wrap it right over the butt ends. Go right to there. And then I'm going to take some olive ice dub. You can spin this in a loop if you want, kind of like Kelly does, or you can just basically touch dub this stuff on, which is what I'm going to do. I want a very, very sparse underbody. The flash in this particular pattern is meant to be subdued. This is the Hog Snare is a pattern that's been kind of replicated in, as in the old rapper world. It's been bitten on by a few people that are now actually getting something very similar to it commercially tied, which is kind of funny, but that's okay. If I inspired something, that's cool. I know I got inspiration from other people too. So the original snare, my good friend Matt Krajewski and I had, that's how we originally met. We both came up with a, never met before, but it was kind of funny in the beginning of social media when I was on Facebook. He has a fly called the Nutter Butter, and it's a 3-section streamer, kind of like the original Hog Snare. And ours had some similarities, but they're definitely different. And that's kind of how we met, and we ended up becoming pretty good friends. Fished together and all that good stuff. So now that you have that in place and you've wrapped your dubbed body, you can pick that out if you want afterwards. It's totally up to you. Now we're going to palmer our schlappen feather right through that. I'm going to use the rotary function on my vise. It's a little easier. Just take my first turn through there, just like you see here. Try and keep that feather as straight as you can. Typically when I tie these two, I try to get 2 schlappen feathers that are varied in size. So one that comes to a point more or less like this one does for the rear, and then one that's a little bit wider for the front. So that helps you with your mass. You'll see when I tie in the second one up front. So I take 3 over it, 3 in front. Can trim that piece away. Can save that because we're going to actually use that. And I wrap my thread right over that stuff. And me, Mr. Half Hitch guy, going to put a half hitch in there. Now you can take your wire brush, and that'll kind of brush those fibers out, but also some of that ice dub. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to add some rubber legs to it, and these are light olive fly enhancer legs. They're kind of cool. They really complement this particular color scheme really, really well. This has been one of my hot colors this year. I've caught a lot of big trout on this fly and some big smallmouth. So I just take 2 right down the center, Pull one to the near side, pull the other to the far side. Wrap my thread back. Fold that one back, fold the other one down the other side. And I'm going to put a half hitch on there. If you catch a couple of those fibers, bloop, take your scissors, pull them right out. Now, how long you leave these is entirely up to you. Some people like them longer. They're not that important to me. Get that out of the way for you. I like them to bleed past the halfway point of the tail. So right about there is good. But you could leave them longer if you want. Next thing we're going to do, we got our nice olive fox hair here. So what I typically like to do, you can see I've been chewing up quite a bit on this guy. I use the shorter hair for the rear. Now, you don't need a ton on here. Less is more. When you tie this like we do in the with an 180 degrees on the top, reverse, this helps this fly hover. That's what makes this fly so so deadly, I think. It's kind of a hover fly. So I get in here, I usually do, comb out my underfur, and I want that to bleed into the tail a bit. So I'm going to have some excess here, I'm going to cut that off. Reverse it. Bind that down right to the top of the hook. And just take your fox hair. I'm going to reverse tie it. So I'll fold it backwards. You see how I've used my thumb to push it rearward? That helps keep the eye clear. So I've done that. Do our lip finish. Trim it. I'm going to use some resin. Try not to do what I just did. Cover the eye. Sometimes it's difficult, especially when you have a camera in front of you. That's in your tying space. So what you can do, just kind of clear that out. That should have cleaned it right out. Sure did. I've already got my piece of beetle on pre-cut. I'm going to run that through there really quickly. Fold it in half. I'm going to put my bead on there. That's the other thing that's different with this one is I'm using these teardrop beads. That sets my tail back. And I kind of want that loop to be like that. And then we can just set that aside. That's our front hook. Pop that in. We'll start in a second. Alright, now we've got our front hook in here. Same thing, it's a Airex TP 610. This one's the number 1. We're just going to lay our thread base right down. Kind of like what I do on all my other articulated streamers. Then we're going to take our tail, align our wires so that both pieces are side by side, right to the top of the hook. 1, 2, 3. Pull it into place, just like you see here. And I got a little extra wire. And then we're just going to run our thread. Don't do this with your good scissors. I'm going to run 4 courses of thread, each one progressively tighter, down and back. Then you can clip that hook right out of the way. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to invert this and I'm going to build a thread cradle for my eyes to the front of this hook. there's my first bump. My second one's going to go right in front of that, as you've seen here. And now I've made basically a bump. A little drop of gel Loctite in there. This is so I can affix my eyes, and that way I know they're not going anywhere. The big thing with this is I don't want to use a heavy lead dumbbell. This is actually a pseudo eye. It's a medium size, so I take one turn right around it, bring it right down, and I'm just going to crisscross over this. So 3 that side, 3 that side. As you'll see here, you gotta use a lot of thread tension on this. This is just to kind of lock it in place. Do this 3 or 4 times. And then I'm going to go right around the base of it all. Burnt my hook back in place. Bring my thread right to the back. And what you can do here too, it's probably unnecessary, but that's pretty well locked in place. I'll use a little bit of gel, or not gel, UV resin, right around the thread base. Front, back, along the sides. That just kind of helps lock it in. Next thing I'm going to do, you remember I saved the butt section of that schlappen feather, because this is just going to kind of cover this up a bit. And you can see I want to use that, so I use some of that fluff. It's probably going to take a couple turns. Just be mindful, if the stem's too thick, it'll be a little bit brittle. 2, 3 over, couple in front. Trim it without sticking your finger on the hook. I wrap my thread right over that, just like you see here. Then I'm going to go in and take one more piece of pearl flyer fly. You only need one for this. And I cut it in half, fold it in half. Two strands go down one side, go over the other. And I just want that to bleed right into the back. So I trim all 4 of them together like so. And now you'll see I'm going to use a bigger schlappen feather for the front. I want one with a wider base to it. Just going to catch that, just like you see here. Wrap over it. Take my ice dub. I'm going to touch dub this on there. Basically just repeating the steps from the rear portion. Probably going to need a little bit more. It's always smart to put your eyes on there in advance, because then that way you always set your head up with the correct dimension. Now I'm just going to palmer that right through that ice dubbing. And then this last one I'm going to take 2 turns right there, because that's going to give me a little bit more hackle for the front end. Get that out of the way. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you're doing a bunch of these, you can trim this and save that guy for the next one. Just wrap back over that a little bit. Same thing, you can go in there with your little wire brush if you'd like. I'm knocking stuff everywhere. Same thing. We're going to get our 2 pieces of fly enhancer legs, which are like crazy legs. Tie them in the middle. These are just accent. You don't really need them in here. I just like what they do. They add a little bit more movement and some color to the fly. Down the side, both. See here. Half hitch it. Get anything you don't need out of the way. Same thing with this. How long you leave these is entirely up to you. I like them to bleed into the back a little bit, so I cut them about there. Now we'll get our fox fur like we did before. Preferably pull some of the longer fox hair off your tail. Cut half of what you think you need. Comb out the under fur. We're going to tie this in reverse. Same thing, I want that to bleed into the rear there, just like you see here. We want to build enough of a table on here with this. You'll see why in a moment. Take your thumb and just kind of roll that stuff. I definitely want to put a half hitch on there. So now, I don't like the way that went. There we go. Now we can make our collar and our head, which are real easy. So I'm actually using a shorter version of Aaron Laterra's Magnum Dub. This is called Taco Tuesday, which really goes well with this. It's kind of like an olivey brown, if you can see it in there. It really complements this fly well. I've already pre-chosen 6 bundles. So my first bundle is going to go right up on top. And actually, I don't have enough. I need a little bit more for this. Key to this stuff is less is more. You can really overdress the collar and the head on this. So I take it, I tie it in half. This is going to be the top half of the collar. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3. Keep some thread tension on there. Fold it rearward, advance your thread in front, put another half hitch on there. That way you know it's not going anywhere. Now we're going to do the same thing on the underbody for the under collar. Need a little more again. See, I'm using my thumb and my middle fingers to pull that material out of the way. And then we're going to take 1 turn. And the big thing is you want to keep it right on that bump of fox hair. 2, 3, without sticking your finger. Card that rearward. And then take a couple of turns right in front of that. And then advance it to here. Reinvert your hook. Half hitch it. And then what I like to do, this is your collar. Your collar is pretty much going to stay that length the whole time. I try to brush out any of that extra hair, or dubbing rather. And you can save that, put that right back into your pack. Use it for another fly. Now, we're going to do the same thing twice for the top and the bottom. I've already pre-carded 4 more bundles. So I'm going to do 1 on the top with 1 turn, 2, 3, tight, keeping thread tension on there, advance it in front. Half hitch it, invert it, do the same thing on the underside. 1, 2, 3, keep it tight, advance your thread in front. You can put a half hitch on there if you like, that way it's not going to come undone. And then advance your thread in front. Now we'll do the top bundle. One, 2, 3, fold it rearward, 2, half. Do the same thing on the underside. And you can see there's some fine manipulation with your hands here to keep the hair that's already, or the dubbing that's already in place, out of your way. So 1, 2, 3, keep it tight, fold it rearward, advance your thread in front. You can put a half hitch on there, and then now we're just going to whip finish that. If you've done this correctly, you've left yourself plenty of room. Build a nice little thread head, trim your thread. You can put head cement on your thread wraps. I'm using bone dry. I really like that. It locks it in place. Cure it. Now the fun part. Now you're just going to take your wire brush and you're basically just blending all this dubbing right through the head. Now you could probably fish this just the way it is. It's a little unruly and crazy and the head's a little too big. So I like to trim these. The best way to trim the heads on these is use a pair of curved scissors, if I'm being honest. You can see I got a bunch left over that can go right back into my dubbing pouch. So I can save that for the next fly. So the quickest way to do this, get yourself some curved scissors. Start on the top, pull the fibers together without cutting yourself. And I cut right along the eyes, both sides. Do the same thing on the underside. And I try and bleed that right into collar. And then you can just kind of fine tune it however you like. Brush some of your hair out. Or dubbing. I keep calling this stuff hair. It's kind of like hair, right? Just fine tune it. That's pretty much it, man. That's the Hog Snare 2.0 4-inch single articulation version. That's the fly. It's in an olive brown. Hope you like it. This is one of my it's in my top streamers I like to fish. I catch a lot of fish on these things every year. So that's that. Hope you enjoy it. Have a good beginning of June. We've got great water conditions around me in the Northeast, so hope you're doing the same. That's it. Thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in a couple weeks.